Hello everyone, warm welcome to today's episode. My name is Dr. Yogesh Raut and I'm extremely happy and delighted to have Gauri with me today. Hello Gauri, welcome to the episode.
Hello.
Let me introduce Gauri to you, a small introduction. Gauri is a behavior and soft skills trainer and leadership consultant who works deeply with professionals on communication, mental health, and emotional resilience. Her work focuses on the invisible patterns that shape how we think, react, and show up, especially in high pressure work environments. She is known for bringing clarity, depth, and practicality to conversations around growth and leadership. So, Gauri, welcome to the episode and let us get started. The first thing that I would like to ask you is this. We often assume smart, capable people should handle pressure better. Why is that assumption flawed?
Wow. Let me get directly to the point, because being smart doesn't make you less a human. I would say that pressure doesn't ask how intelligent you are. It goes straight to how safe you feel, isn't it? I mean, I have experienced this so many times where a lot of people feel unsafe when you have intimidating people around, right? And in those moments, even very capable people can respond in ways that can surprise themselves. I mean, I have seen, just because of somebody intimidating in that room, sometimes I may be the best in terms of knowledge base, but somehow I cannot speak in front of those people or that one person in that room, and somehow it becomes a little challenging for me to talk. So why is it flawed? I would say that pressure doesn't really ask how intelligent you are, isn't it? I mean, it really um, is up to how safe you feel, and that's where we tend to go ahead and speak the way we speak, react the way we react, and end up making either fools of ourselves or end up looking the smartest in that room. It depends entirely on that environment that we are exposed to.
Fantastic. I think what you talked about is something that really happens a lot of time
Yeah.
in work environment. So this is something
Yes.
I'm sure the listeners will be able to concur with because this is something
Yeah.
that we all come
Yeah.
across multiple times in work environment. Moving
Correct.
forward,
Yeah.
when people say, I know better, but I still react, what's actually happening in that particular moment?
If you look at the sentence itself, the sentence itself tells me someone is being really hard on themselves. We are so hell-bent on being the perfect person, in that in that entire pressure that we have created for ourselves, that I need to sound perfect, I need to be the best. Or if I'm not able to answer even one point, oh my God, I'm done, I'm doomed, and people are going to laugh at me. And that is probably the pressure that we have already created, you know on ourselves. So the sentence itself is so powerful, isn't it? I mean, I know better, right? But I still react. So what's actually happening in that moment is that the body reacts before the mind gets a chance, because there is a jitter, right? I feel that nervousness, that nervous energy. So my body somehow has that reaction before my mind can actually give it a thought. You may have seen this, right, doctor, where we we face that situation, and we later on realize that, oh God, I could have said this in that moment. And our body has already reacted to the situation either angrily, or in the fit of maybe maybe shame has suddenly come into us, and we just disappear, or we want to disappear from that particular situation or that scene. And only later we realize that, oh God, you know what, I could have probably handled the situation better. I could have said something different, right? So later, when the things calm down, the mind shows up and says, why did I do that? But by then, the reaction has already happened, right? And that is what happens. So I would say but I still react because I know things, but somehow at that moment, we just don't know what to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of times, again, we all have gone through such kind of situations, especially in interviews. Something
Yeah,
a very different kind of question is asked, and you answer, and later you realize, why did I answer that? And it is really shameful. I personally have
yes,
been gone through such questions, particularly in interview. I remember, and now when
yeah,
I think, I said, why did I answer that way? What was I thinking? Why did I say that? Was it me who answered that question?
yeah,
So I'm sure that is a wonderful insight that you
yeah,
shared with
yeah,
all of us. Moving
absolutely.
forward,
Sure.
is reacting under pressure a lack of emotional intelligence or something else entirely? How is it?
Oh, okay. Let me put it this way. I mean, each of these thoughts that come to my mind at this very moment, tell me the answer is no, not at all. Because if you talk about reacting under pressure by itself, just imagine there is so much already at stake in my head. If anything, okay, believing we should never react is what creates the problem. If you really give it a thought, we tell ourselves that, you know what, you should not react. So, say, for example, when you are uncomfortable with certain people around, and you have no choice, but you have to go for that meeting, or maybe you have to face those people, maybe in our families also, maybe our friend circle also. You have no choice, but you meet certain people. You have no choice on certain days. And somehow, you would see that we tell ourselves, we prepare ourselves, right? Before we go to that that place, that person, or before we even face that person, it's as if you've rehearsed talking to that person in your head that, okay, if that person says this, now I'm going to say this. If, if that person does this time I'm not going to listen. So, we somehow tell ourselves, or we tell ourselves, prepare ourselves that, okay, I have no reaction to give this time. And I create that sort of aura. I somehow believe that, okay, I will not behave like this in front of, certain people. But somehow it's not quite in your control at times. So emotional intelligence isn't about being calm all the time. It's about understanding yourself without shaming yourself. Does that
That's
make
that's
sense?
a
I mean,
that's a powerful thought. I think you should repeat this because I think this is something we should spend time on. If you could repeat this
yeah,
for the
yeah,
listeners,
of
please. Yeah.
course, of course. So what I'm going to say is emotional intelligence isn't about being calm all the time. It's about understanding yourself without shaming yourself. Now, just imagine your own demeanor, right? And imagine your demeanor whilst facing those people, those situations, and after that situation is over. Somewhere deep down inside, as a person, I know what I did. And if I'm going to feel ashamed of my own self, which, human beings are self critics, and we tend to do that. We are so critical about everything that we ourselves put ourselves into, and we keep on thinking about it, ruminating. Some people have that habit as well, that we keep ruminating over the same thought and thinking about things as, hey, you know what, I shouldn't have said that. And then you're absolutely, ashamed of your actions, and I shouldn't have reacted, I should have just let that person be. And we don't realize things at that point. So, emotional intelligence is all about, first of all, keeping a complete tab on yourself. But that does not mean that you have to be calm at all times. Come on, I mean, human beings are known to be reactive, and we cannot be calm at all times. It's not something that, I mean, see, for example, you can allow yourself to be in the moment, or you can allow yourself to think in a certain way, and it's a choice. Again, in psychology, as they say, to be angry, happy, or sad is a choice. So if you say something to me, I will make a conscious decision to say something as a retaliation. or I will make a conscious decision to not say anything in retaliation. It's funny, isn't it? That we tend to do that.
True, true,
Anyway,
very
I hope
true,
I've
very true.
answered.
Yes, 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 definitely. I think you definitely have answered that. It is something that we should think about it, and not only think about it, but imbibe it as well.
Yep.
Moving forward, what I would like to ask is what happens in the brain when pressure hits, especially in
Ah.
work situations? What happens at that moment? What is happening?
See, there is so much happening. Imagine your brain speeds up, number one, right? It speeds up. There are too many thoughts at one go. For example, in 1930 you said this, 1957 you did this, and then suddenly cut to I come to 2024 and then 2025, and oh my goodness, now 26 is coming. So, you know, I have everything randomly coming in my head and it speeds up. So the brain stops asking, what's the best response? you know, the brain actually stops asking what's the best response. And instead, what happens is it starts asking, how do I protect myself? I get in the reptilian format of thinking, right? I mean, fight, flight, freeze. मैं अपने आप को कैसे? How do I save myself? How do I protect myself from anything that is going to happen to me now? And in that bid, I end up saying things, I end up doing things in a certain way. So my brain, that starts thinking on the lines of how do I protect myself? That protection can somehow look like anger, silence, over explaining, or even people pleasing at times. So, say, for example, after doing what I've done, I may want to please those people in a way where, okay, it's my coping mechanism. I'm trying to tell myself that, okay, by doing this, I forgive myself. Or by doing this, I think that person will not completely distance himself or herself from me, you know? So the brain speeds up and it becomes very difficult many a times. Pick which one to pick, in terms of my reaction to the situation, I would say. So protection can look different in different situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Moving on, what I would like to ask is why does awareness not
Uh-huh.
automatically translate into control during high stress moments?
Okay. If you really give it a thought, you would see that when we talk about awareness, because awareness lives in the head and reactions live in the body. And let me repeat this sentence. Awareness lives in the head and reactions live in the body. So what you see when we talk about the 10% and the 90% of the iceberg, it's the 10% that we notice of a person, correct? In terms of the reactions that person gives, the way that person dresses up, expresses, so on and so forth. And when we talk about awareness, it's in the head. No one can actually see what all you're actually prepared for. So, say for example, I face an interview. Okay? Now, the interviewer is looking at me. Maybe I look like a person who is unprepared, or maybe I look like a person who is absolutely prepared. But when I'm sitting in front of the person can only see how I've dressed and maybe my bodily actions, in a way. But my awareness is not really understood till I start talking. Correct? So when we talk about this very sentence, let me further explain this. So you can tell yourself this isn't a big deal, but if your body feels threatened, it won't listen to that logic. You can tell yourself, right? I mean, you can probably think on the lines of, okay, it's all right, all is well. Remember that movie uh, where we talk about Amir Khan constantly telling everyone, all is well, all is well. See, telling yourself all is well versus is everything well, in reality, are two entirely different experiences. So I can tell myself, yeah, That's making my body feel a little calm, right? But if in my head I'm not aware of that situation to be in my control, I probably won't listen to that logic. Remember how we felt when we went for those difficult exams, right? That exam that we had to write, that paper that we had to, write. And probably that subject was not something I am well aware of. Maybe in my head, I've already created a monster, of that particular subject. And when I would write that paper, before I go for that paper, maybe my parents wish me all the best. Everybody tells me everything is going to be fine. Now, everybody's telling me that. Okay. I'm also telling this to myself. But do I feel so until I go there and see the questions? Maybe till then I'm not okay. So being aware is in the head and reactions tend to live in the body. So if you look at it, it somehow allows you to understand things if you only buy that logic.
Fantastic, fantastic. Moving forward, how does
Hmm.
identity like being seen as competent or dependable make
Hmm.
reactions worse?
Wow. So when you're known as, say, one of the reliable ones or the strong ones, I mean, you would see that when people uh, know you as somebody who is like, somebody who they can rely or depend on, you feel you're not allowed to falter, isn't it? I mean, it's it's a syndrome, I would say. A lot of older ones among the siblings tend to feel this kind of a pressure, right? Or sometimes if it's the younger sibling who is somehow the one who has taken the charge of the family, and the older one somehow is not the one who is as mature, as capable as compared to the younger one, whichever is true, you'll see that there is a unwritten rule for this person where you cannot falter is the rule that you have to follow. I cannot make mistakes. And I see you smile, doctor. I mean, is there something you would like to share?
No, no, I think I've seen in my family and my friends, I know there are, there are people who, who have been given this tag and it, so while you were answering, I could see those, I remember,
Yeah,
oh, this person, this family, at times they are younger, at times they are
yeah,
older, but they
yeah.
have been given that tag and whenever important decisions are to be made or something important to be decided, discussed, they are the ones
Yes.
that everyone goes to.
So
So
true.
I think what you're talking about, I'm
So
sure the
true.
listeners will also identify
Yeah,
with some of people in their family, amongst their
yeah,
friends. People
yeah.
where everyone goes whenever there is something important, urgent, things are to be
Correct.
discussed, or
Correct.
uh, there is some decision to be made.
Yeah,
I personally know them, and I'm sure it happens with every
it
one of
does.
us in all families, in all group of friends.
Sure. Absolutely. And this is where a lot of times the role becomes your unfortunate identity, or it becomes, a thumb rule that you have to behave like this. So when something challenges that image, so say for example, that dilemma that I get into, that okay, it's out of my character to probably have fun, you know, or loosen up a little bit, maybe not be that older one for a change and enjoy, maybe climb the tree like a child, or do some fun activities like a child. um that challenge, that we somehow feel is going to be a challenge for that image that I have created. So what happens over here is the reaction isn't about the ego, it's about the fear of losing who you think you need to be. Because what happens is, because I feel that people are going to look at me, and again, what are people going to look at me like? And I give that pressure to myself consistently because of that role that I have identified myself with.
Yeah, because the friends and family has given you that tag, and you
Exactly.
have the pressure to perform as per the tag now, whether
Exactly.
you
And there
like
is
it
a
or not.
confirmation, right? I've given that confirmation also to myself, and they have given that confirmation in subtle examples. This person tends to do certain things. See how he does. See how she does. And it becomes as if like a certificate for myself that, oh, you know what? Yeah, I think I do that. So I tell myself that, okay, I'm not allowed to be anything but this anymore. So that becomes my identity, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I mean, why unfortunate all the time? Maybe in certain cases it works for you as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is something very important. I am sure the listeners will be smiling as they are listening to this particular answer. Moving forward with respect to workplace, what I would
Mhm.
like to ask is what are some of the common ways that pressure shows up, particularly in the work environment?
When we talk about especially the common, space that you would experience, are, say, for example, I have seen whenever, a feedback is given or there is a certain amount of pressure built up at work, or there is, say, for example, sometimes I've seen, especially under urgent and important kind of situations where I have to, be a certain kind of a person. Um, it somehow starts building up a lot of pressure on me where I need to. Uh, it's like a dramatic, moment that I create, but it's rarely one big dramatic moment. So it tends to show up in constant urgency, being available all the time. Maybe there are occasions where I've noticed that um, a lot of leaders today cannot give you expectations clearly. So there are unclear expectations. And then, they want you to be a certain kind of a person where, you're doing things appropriately on time, tends to wear people down, right? When there is too much of expectation from you. So, say, for example, being available all the time, especially in the IT today, you will see that you have to be there 24 by 7. It's an unwritten sort of a rule. So, you will see that you go on a vacation, but you just don't have that bandwidth to decide that you want to have your space, your time. And what happens is that expectation somehow is already there from the company or the office,
True, true,
and
true,
your image and your family has certain expectation from you as a person, and then you're not able to live up,
true, true.
and that guilt.
We all know friends who are on
Yeah,
vacation and
yeah,
who are traveling, but
yeah,
they are joining the calls. They are
yeah,
doing the work. They might be on leave,
correct.
but they will join a call with the client. They will have a connect with the team members. And I think with the mobile phones taking place
Yes,
of the laptop, because mobile phone is something
correct.
that you will always carry. you know uh,
Absolutely.
you are never far away from work. I will put it that way.
No, and the most taxing and the pressurizing part comes where you can't say no. You find it awkward, or maybe it's beyond you to say no. And that somehow creates more pressure, right? Because you're not able to say no to a lot of things. You're not able to live up to the expectations to those people as well. And that it's like a vicious circle because you cannot fulfill the expectations the way it's desired. You feel as if, oh my goodness, I'm not doing a good job here. Now my job is going to probably go, and it's a job threat in a way, and it's like a vicious circle. So because there is a job threat, I will do anything extra that I need to ensure that I please those expected people or the respective entities. And again, just imagine what's it, really doing to you health wise.
True, very true, very true. Moving forward, I think a couple of more questions before we wind
Sure,
up this episode. Uh,
sure.
why do leaders sometimes unintentionally trigger defensive or emotional reactions in their teams?
Yeah. Oh my God. And I tell you one thing, that when we talk about um, especially being a leader, let's first of all understand that there are variety of leaders out there. Some leaders who don't want to be a leader, but because of the number of years of experience, they're pushed in that role. Okay. And then there are certain leaders who are in that role with complete authority and understanding. So you would see that because of this very difference, you will see the way they present themselves is also quite unique. And again, there are many other types, I would say, but I'm just focusing on these two because you will understand how it works many a times. So often without realizing it, okay, because many a times what happens is there's a hurried tone, a last minute change, or by giving a feedback publicly, yeah, something like, say, for example, why do you always do that? It's like a feedback, right? So when I'm telling some friend, it's different. But when I'm telling somebody in my team, in front of a lot of other people, why do you always do that? So I may not sound like this. Maybe my tone is very normal. It doesn't sound like I'm, being, what do you say, specific about giving you feedback. But still, look at the words. Why do you always do this? You you tend to label certain things on that person, that you always do that. Or, you know, see, again, it's not my intention, but then I can instantly make someone feel exposed, right? Even if that wasn't the intention. Even a simple gesture, the way I point out at someone, finger pointing, or, suddenly giving a certain reaction, or, just making one call and saying, okay, send that email quickly. It's not a request. And I don't mean that you have to always sound like you're requesting your team member, or, you don't have to always sound like, you are humble, you're gentle, you're calm. You cannot do that at all times. But imagine how often are you doing that? So I'll tell you a very interesting insight, So from the industrial era to today, where information is at your disposal, people know to question everything that they see, everything that they experience, and they ask without any hesitance. So in the industrial era, people did not question as much, although they were shouted and given a feedback in front of I don't know how many people. So yelling was a part of the culture, it was normalized. But today, you will see that it's out there on LinkedIn everywhere, maybe, or it's out there on social media platforms where, this is how my boss spoke to me on a Zoom call. It becomes like a big deal. So now maybe the intention is to get the job done, which is not wrong. But how are you getting it done is something that one needs to pay attention to. So I would say that, the intention may or may not be, okay, to trigger a reaction. But let's understand that we tend to do that because we're all human beings, end of the day. And we do get triggered with small things.
True, true. I think, uh, it depends. There are people who behave consistently in that way, and there are others
Yeah,
who have more control, maybe. But definitely,
exactly.
that is something that we see. What I would like to ask further, Gauri, is
Hmm.
if you could share a real life example where a smart professional reacted poorly and
Hmm.
what was really driving it.
Wow. I would say I've seen incredibly capable people go quiet or defensive in meetings. And not because they couldn't handle a feedback, but because it came when they weren't emotionally prepared. So once the conversation became safer, people tend to show maturity and openness. And that's my general observation. But now coming to your question, when we talk about a smart person, you know, creating, a situation for himself or herself in that room, in that conversation, imagine a very normal day where you have a planned meeting, you get in that meeting room, the discussion starts, and out of the blue, this is a very typical example I give in most of my training sessions as well. The smart person, let's assume this person is also the leader, okay, ends up asking a question in the halfway of the meeting. Okay, so till that time, everything is discussed, everybody is involved, everything is done. And then suddenly a question is posed to one particular person. Okay, and that person is expected to give an answer where, what are your thoughts, okay, about this particular thing? So the meeting is actually over after that person answers and says that, okay, you know what? Let's go with what he says right now. You know what? I mean, this is a very common observation, I'm sure. I mean, it's not just me, it's probably a common observation across globe, across industries, where sometimes leaders don't understand that they're being too obvious, that they are being biased. And this bias, I mean, it's also called as the sunflower bias. You ask one person a question, and that person is, probably put in the spotlight, and that person answers whatever he or she has to, and that becomes the most important response in that room. And then that response somehow is the end of the story. And the meeting is over. Then why did we have the meeting? Why do this show business where, you block the meeting room for an hour, everybody's really taking a lot of effort. They prepare presentations and so on and so forth. Everything is done. People go there, discuss things. But then you ask one question to one person and that's it. That's it. Really? So that's all that I have experienced, and it creates a lot of unrest in that room. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
maybe there is a lot of pressure on the smart person, I would say. So let's think from this person's point of view. Why does this person do something like this? Because imagine if there is something really important I need to give my, you know, reaction to, and if my response is not good enough, then what? So I somehow put my pressure on some other person's shoulder who I think is smarter in that room. But I don't like to say that. So what I end up doing is I put my, trust on this person without saying it. And then I expect that person to give a response. And then if anything goes wrong, it's because of that person. If anything goes right, it's because I did something good. I asked that person. So that's how we tend to, unnecessarily do certain things that create, this kind of an image.
Okay, moving forward, I think we'll close with this final question. And the question is about how does culture, organizational or national, amplify or suppress these reactions? If you could provide some insights on this.
Wow. So before I even answer this one, so when I was studying MS in psychotherapy and counseling, I had selected this as one of my topics. When we talk about organizational culture, um, as my thesis work. So when we talk about organizational culture and leadership, how they are linked with each other. and how the organizational culture is somehow set and built by the leaders in a way. Okay, was my topic. But coming back to this question, okay, now think about it this way. Culture tends to decide what feels unsafe. Okay, and let me clarify what I'm trying to say. So in some places, speaking up feels risky. Okay, in others, not speaking up feels risky. When those expectations clash, people tend to react. And not because they're difficult, but because they're confused. And let me support my example with a very interesting, situation. I have seen a lot of people who work at an MNC as their first job. And I'm just giving you one example. There are many out there. Okay. I'm just giving you one example. So if at all I work at an MNC as my first job, my experience is to speak up. I need to speak for myself. And maybe over a period of time, I quit and I move to a place which is more of, a smaller setup. So it's not an MNC, it's like a small organization, which is still not as big. It's a small space that I've gone into. Now you can't speak your mind out immediately because it's risky. And if I do that, it somehow creates a lot of trouble for me to begin with. You'll see a lot of people tend to distance themselves very strategically from me. Or some people put, their guns on my shoulder and want me to talk on their behalf. What I'm trying to say over here is when we talk about being the smart person over there, okay, especially when we talk about, the culture influence, let's understand that every organization has its own, standard format of operations, and the culture is set in accordingly. So you'll see that when we talk about, a person speaking up for himself or herself, or not speaking for himself or herself, also comes from the way I'm made to feel in that team, in that setup, in that organization, and it does have a lot of impact on me.
That was important aspect. Organizational culture, so much is talked
Yeah,
about, and so many things discussed about organizational culture. So I wanted to end this
yeah,
particular episode by asking you that very important question with respect to organizational culture. So Gauri, it was wonderful to listen to you. I'm sure the listeners are going to benefit from your thoughts. It was wonderful to talk to you. Thank you for your time, and
thank you.
best wishes for your future journey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and all the best to you too. Thank you.
Thank you.